Back here at Lucas Oil Stadium, Chris Schmidt, Joel Klatt with Fox Sports College Football. Joel, what a scene this is. My first time to Lucas Oil. I know you've covered many a Big Ten title game. This is a pretty special venue. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, you bet. I'm excited to be here. It's good to be back at a media day and getting ready for what hopefully will be a more normal season, and let's hope that it moves that direction.
When we talk normalcy, Nebraska football used to being 9-3, 10-2, playing for championships. Scott Frost has put a ton of work in.
Yep.
Nebraska trying to make the jump in year 4.
Yep.
How do you look at Nebraska as you kind of weigh in what's back in the West and the bigger picture of college football? What do you look at this fourth season being?
I think that maybe the project was a little bit more intense, dire than Scott realized before he got here. Program was not in a good spot. Just kind of, that's, I think everybody kind of realizes that. I have always appreciated the fact that Scott is, one, a hard worker, two, wants badly to succeed at Nebraska, and 3, is incredibly honest. And I've had very honest conversations with him. I can remember doing last year's game before Ohio State, and he said, we did the meeting, and he was very complimentary of his players. There's no doubt, but there was an honesty about, like, listen, we're not at a level yet where we can go out there. So, like, everything's going to have to go right for us to compete in this game. And for a little bit, it did. Remember early, they played well in the first half. There's no doubt about it. Offensively, they were doing some creative things, but then it's just a war of attrition. You just don't have the players to keep up with a team like Ohio State. So I've always appreciated Scott's honesty. And so when he says he's the most excited that he's been about any of his teams in Nebraska, I believe him. When he talks about the offensive line first as the position group that he's most excited about, and the fact that they've had to put so much work into not only the development, but the recruiting and just the overall physicality of that group, that I believe in. And so to me, like, I think Nebraska has a chance to be the best team that Scott has had, right? Now, having said that, they get no favors in this league, man. I'm telling you, like, brutal. The schedule is brutal. And they don't even have to play the Buffs. Kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that one. But
Buffs are back.
I know that, which would be awesome.
Can't wait.
Michigan and Ohio State, from the other side.
They're in Lincoln, but you get a roadie to Norman,
which is not fun. I'll do that game, actually. I'll be there.
We'll be down there in the RV lot, so come by.
There you go. Schedule's tough. Schedule's incredibly tough. They've got OU's going to open up maybe as the number 2 or number 3 team in the country. Ohio State's going to open up as maybe the number 4 team in the country. I think that the West Side is really tough. Iowa's way better than people are giving them credit for.
Good.
I think that they're very good. They're very sturdy. They absolutely could win that division. I think Wisconsin is going to be a lot better than what they were with Graham getting his feet wet. Obviously, we know that Northwestern is always tough. Like, it's just a tough deal, right? So, are they going to be a better team this year? Absolutely. Are they going to win 9 games? I don't know. I think that would be a lot. That would be a heck of a season if Scott and his bunch won 9 games.
What's your thoughts on Adrian? I mean, there's been a roller coaster for Adrian in his career. He handled the adversity, in my opinion, last year with the benching and then reemerging the right way. Stand-up kid, stand-up teammate. So now you get a senior season, and there you go.
I think it's going to help that he has his best offensive line that he's had, right? I mean, Adrian has been behind some poor offensive lines.
It's either been the line or what he's trying to throw to. What's the skill set? I mean, that's exactly right. It's a far cry from a JD and a Stanley Morgan.
That's exactly. I couldn't agree more. And any of us that have played that position have gone through that. In particular, when you start for any number of years in college, you're going to have years you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the skill position players. Oh my goodness, my offensive line is not quite as good. I really appreciated him, just his maturity, his leadership, the way he handled everything. That tells me a lot about you as a person and it's my belief that quarterbacks have to be that high character individual within the locker room. I'm sure that the way Adrian went through everything that he's been through over the last couple of years, and specifically last year, has won him favor within the locker room, right? And that's a big deal, in particular when you're going into your senior year. I hope he plays really well. I hope he stays healthy, and I think we're going to see the best version of him this year. I really do.
Who challenges? Is there a challenge for Ohio? There's probably a challenge with Ohio State. What's that race look like?
There's not, right? Like,
and Penn State's pretty loaded, good talent. You have.
But when you look at the actual composition of these rosters, there's not a roster that is in the hemisphere of Ohio State. I'm sorry, there's just not.
Year after year.
And it's getting worse. You could say the same thing about Clemson and the ACC. You can say the same thing at the top of the SEC between Georgia and Alabama and LSU to a certain extent in the rest of their conference. Maybe Florida is in there as well. You can say that with Oklahoma, with their roster composition, kind of Texas too. There's just a giant separation between the top of these conferences and everybody else. Now, as it relates to like this conference, I would say the second tier of this conference is better than the second tier in almost everywhere else, which makes it deep. But I hate to say it, like, no one's up there. Now, I don't know if Ohio State's going to win the league or not. They've won 4 straight. Their roster composition is better than anybody else's. Does that mean that they're going to win the conference? I don't know. I think Penn State's got an experienced quarterback. I'm excited to see what Mike Yurcich kind of brings as the offensive coordinator. They won 4 straight last year. I think Iowa is sneaky good. Michigan flying under the radar. What does that mean? Is one of these quarterbacks going to step up and actually be a guy that they can really rely on? What is Wisconsin going to be with Graham Mertz? There's a lot of questions for me about all of this. But when you sit back and you actually look at it, I went out in the spring and just watched Ohio State practice. Guys, I know Justin Fields ain't going to be there. I totally understand that. That team is loaded. I don't know who their quarterback's going to be. They're choosing between 3 really good players at the quarterback position. And every other position on the field, either side, is too deep. That's the reality of what it is. I'm not trying to blow smoke or hyperbole. That's just the reality of what that roster is.
That's their level right now. Indiana, how do they react?
I didn't mention Indiana.
I love Coach Allen and Penix, and wow. But they're not a surprise anymore.
If Ohio State doesn't fix their pass defense, namely their ability to get to the quarterback, Indiana is really interesting because Michael Penix, there's something about him, man. I'm telling you, when he's healthy and when he's on the field, that team is totally different. Tom Allen will tell you that. The statistics bear that out. They're a good football team. They've got great energy within their program. Their roster and its composition is not nearly what Ohio State's is, but they proved last year that they've got the kids to go out there and take Ohio State to the limit. They need breaks to go their way, certainly. There's no doubt about that, but that's a team that I'm very excited for. They've put themselves, think about it, we're talking about Indiana football, and they've put themselves on a tier in this conference with Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Like those are the teams. And in Indiana, right? And that's the level, to bring it back to Nebraska, that's their next step. How do you get to where you're included in those teams? And I think that's an important step for Nebraska to take.
Joel Klatt, College Football, Fox. And before we say goodbye, let's talk big picture here. What do you believe about expansion, Texas, Oklahoma? What are you hearing?
Real.
What do you feel?
Yeah, so it's 100% real. I do not know how far down the road it has gone. And I do know that there's basically an all-out civil war behind closed doors in the state of Texas.
Sure. A&M
is fighting tooth and nail. So I honestly, I don't know, nor do I understand how those two could ever coexist again in a conference together, to be quite honest. Now, what happens, I'm not sure. I happen to believe, whether this happens as it's speculated or not, I do believe that this is the trigger for our next round of reconfiguration and reshuffling. And I think that there's a really good chance that we end up with only 4 conferences.
So the 4 super conferences, what's, again, to speculate here, okay, if Texas and OU go to the SEC, where's the Big Ten go shopping?
I don't know.
Who?
And I don't know if they have to be honest with you.
I don't think they have to.
I don't
either.
think that they have to. And they can kind of stay around the rim and see what falls off the rim and if that's attractive or not, right? So to me, I don't think that the Big Ten has to do anything. I do think this is my own opinion. OU and Texas moving to the SEC may be good for them. I don't know, right? Obviously, they're looking at trying to do something that's good for them. It may be good for the SEC. I do know with every fiber in my being that that's not good for the sport overall.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I know that. And I think that's one of the biggest frustrations that I have with this sport and the people in charge of it is that they refuse to put the best interests of the sport globally first. And we are not governed. I think, college football operates in silos of selfishness. And
Very fair.
And that's not good for the sport overall.
Gary Barnett.
The rib-off.
The rib-off is coming in August.
Come on.
And, I don't know if that's an invite to Coach Barney's backyard for the rib-off or we just need to get a report. But there was some discussion Tuesday before we left for Indy about being a judge. He had won some Husker money on the golf course.
Okay.
So he was happy.
Good for him.
He puts the Husker money near his game balls, he says.
Oh,
so we can look at it each day.
I mean, 62-36, man.
Yeah, it's 20 years.
And they've never been the same since.
No. And
that day, that was like the day.
It's the music ending, right?
Yes.
And there's been a lot of changes, Joe. About every 5 years, somebody's moving in or out.
Man.
But the rib-off, he was wondering, do you go dry rub or do you go wet sauce? His wife loves barbecue.
I like the sauce. I like sauce.
I'm a dry rub guy. So
I like sauce because I love like bread. So then yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
St. Louis style or baby back?
I like St. Louis style.
Same here. So we'll shoot you a text and get your reaction.
And he's going to go St. Louis style. He's from St. Louis.
Yeah, he's around there.
Right.
Missouri guy.
Missouri.
Joel Klatt. Joel, this is great to see you.
Yeah, you bet. Have a good one, okay?